Good morning. Welcome to the Premium Public Video Forecast discussion for Friday, May 3rd, 2014. Of course, I am your certified digital meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. Before we begin talking about a lot of changes going on in the atmosphere, a lot of competing forcing mechanisms, we're going to break all that down and also explain why it's starting to get cloudy outside. I also want to just let you know that we have a very cool something more uh, presented by Tom Moore, which, if you don't know, it is a historical series. So we do this every Friday at usually 9:30 a.m. I put it out, and it goes over historical factors. And this week we talk about the history of the Weather Channel when it first started, as he was one of the pioneer meteorologists. So it's going to be very interesting read. So definitely check that out. I'll also share it on all the social medias. And of course, if you're interested, we also starting to put out new shirts. I guess you could call it swag, right? Shirts, hats, stuff like that, hoodies. So if you want to get that, we're working on some other stuff too. So definitely check that out. That certainly helps around here, paid the bills, so to speak. And of course, if you're interested in more detailed information every day, always check out the premium consulting membership. We added on in the dashboard a new feature, especially for those who are landscaping companies who can't exactly afford, let's just say, the business package, where you can go in there and just say, hey, is it going to rain or not? What can I expect? And there's a part right on top of the dashboard that says, hey, look, all good, green, nothing expected, or yeah, there's a few showers, or forget about it, cancel because it's going to be a very wet day. So I think that helps out quite a bit for those of you who are premium consulting members and need that quick information. So with that, let's dive into the forecast. Okay, so we'll hide that. And we start off with the tropics here. Tropics are quiet, which you would expect for early May, of course. We're not in the season yet. The season starts on June 1st officially. But I like to show the tropics now because one gives you an idea of what regions we're going to be watching over the next several months. And of course, out here is what we call the Cape Verde Islands out here. And this is where we start our Cape Verde season. Probably look for that late July and August, and then, of course, September and October. Out here is your Caribbean, and this is your Lesser Antilles and Greater Antilles. And here's your Bahamas, and then here, of course, is the Gulf Coast and Florida and the East Coast. And of course, down here is Central America, South America, and the Yucatan Peninsula. I like to point this out as we move through and start the season because, hey, look, let's face it, not everyone is good with geography. So it's good to get an idea of what we're talking about when we say Cape Verde season or a hurricane around the Cape Verde Islands. We're talking about way out here. Okay. So right now it's pretty quiet, which you would expect. One thing we'll have to watch out for once we get past May 15th is the potential for maybe some subtropical low pressure systems, a little bit of mischief out here towards the Gulf of Mexico or down towards the Bahamas, especially with all the warm water in place. And talking about water temperatures, very interesting anomalies are showing up. As you know, we'll zoom in. Our La Nina is starting to get its act together. Now, one thing I pointed out to premium members a couple of days ago, and I'll do it now. Here's our negative PDO, right? Why is this important? Okay, the reason why this is so important is that not only does it help to atmospherically enhance the influences of La Nina, but it also starts to have a bit of an influence on the orientation development. So the way that this whole scenario works here is that you get this cold water below normal temperatures here. You have an ocean current here, okay, along the California coast. Let's say it starts in the Gulf of Alaska, works down the California coast, and it works its way down into the coastal waters off of Mexico and Central America. But as it descends, it basically sinks below the surface, right? Because of the denser, colder air, colder water over the warmer water because, more direct sunlight. The reason why this is important is that it feeds the development of our La Nina. So this is like an enhancer. This is like putting some nitro in the tank of your car, okay? So, or I don't know whether it goes in the tank. I'm not really a car person, but you get the idea. It adds a lot of fuel to the fire, okay? So in this case, it is a cold fire. It's a cold ice dragon getting ready to fire and set itself up with La Nina. And with that, that enhancement starts to create a stronger support for colder water being upwelling. And what I'm watching for is as this evolution takes hold and starts to take shape, that sets up the potential here for your La Nina to rapidly grow, but also focus more in Nino 1 plus 2 and Nino 3. So basically, this region right here. If your La Nina expands out to here, where like the coldest anomaly set up here, that's where you have your west-based La Nina. It completely kills the convection out here, the thunderstorm development out towards the date line. But if it's focused out here, you can still get thunderstorm development out by the date line. Why is this important? Well, the development of convection specifically influences the number and intensity of the shortwaves in the subtropical jet stream. Okay. So another way to see this is to study what's going on with the SOI. Now, the SOI, it's a good indicator for a couple of things. First of all, you have your monthly and seasonal values. We looked at this all through winter, and it had a negative values, and negative values tend to support El Nino conditions, all right, atmospheric conditions, whereas positive anomalies set up La Nina conditions. Now, in terms of the seasonal influences of El Nino or La Nina, you look at these values. But in terms of looking at the potential for activity, storm activity, well, you look at the daily values. The daily values kind of tell you where the trends are going. And we will be gradually going towards a La Nina state. But as we are in right now, as we've seen for much of spring, you basically have a mixed influence, driving influence. You're getting more and more of the support for La Nina characteristics and locations of troughs and ridges, helped out by the negative PDO. But you also have the El Nino characteristics of very strong short waves in the subtropical jet stream, which has led to some very impressive severe weather events. But it also helps out with the potential for blocking, i.e., our backdoor cold front that we keep on seeing and the unsettled conditions around the northern mid-Atlantic. So this doesn't tell me intensity of storms. It just tells me, like, hey, look, it's going to be an active pattern, potential for some strong short waves, but the overall theme here is active, enhanced. So when I'm seeing these competing factors, it creates a lot of noise in the model guidance. So this is why we're seeing a great deal of volatility. Add that to what we're seeing here in the stratosphere. Again, this is at 10 millibars. What I am watching here is the location of these warm pockets in the mid levels, because where you get these warm pockets, that's where you're most likely to get your troughs and upper level lows hanging around. And we've been seeing quite a bit of that here around the Canadian Maritimes, but notice the trends recently of those warm pockets shifting more towards Europe and the warm pockets shifting more towards the desert Southwest. Why is that important? I think we're going to be in the process of a pattern change where we're finally going to get rid of this trough in the northwestern Atlantic, but we're going to have to go through a whole process in order to get there, which will eventually lead, I think, by the end of this month, of a rather robust ridge building from the southeast into the northern mid-Atlantic. But before we get to that point, we're going to have to go through a pretty significant trough, dropping through and setting up some Pacific air dominating over the eastern United States as this whole pattern starts to shift and you start to see a change in the wavelengths. Remember, we're seeing a change in the wavelengths at 500 millibars because we're seeing a shift in the gradient, temperature gradient, because we're getting more direct sunlight. So we're losing that tight thermal gradient, which would enhance wavelengths in the atmosphere and set up our pattern. And so this is what we're looking at. Again, this is from weathermodels.com. You can see over the next 10 days, that shift beginning to happen. Look at the fact that we're displacing the trough that was here, shifting it up towards the northern Atlantic and towards Greenland. We still have our signal out here over the Pacific, where we have a trough initially over the Aleutians, which sets up this trough over the eastern United States and drives polar Pacific air into the region. Now, you're not going to get pure polar air because that's going to get trapped up into northern Canada and around the Arctic Circle. But this feature, even though we see the spike like that, notice in the subtropical jet stream, you still get your trough here trying to linger here down towards California, and you start to get your pushback of a ridge now over the western Atlantic. So this is a step process here. So when we take a look at the GFS solution after that point, you can see where we're heading towards, where we start to get this trough here starting to show up around the west coast here, this ridge starting to expand out here. Look for this to grow. Look for this trough. We no longer have a sustained trough over the Canadian Maritimes, but you get this broad trough. So your polar jet stream is more zonal. Your subtropical jet stream remains basically active and amplified. And you start to see that this trough here is starting to lose some punch already, starting to give way. On the European ensembles, look where we're at day 10, pretty robust trough, nice ridge on the west coast here. Clearly, a Pacific air mass is able to take hold and build in and sustain itself. As we move through 10 to 15 days, what happens? The trough starts to shift more towards the Gulf of Alaska. You're going to start to see more of a zonal flow, Pacific air masses driving through. Here's the start of our southeast ridge getting ready to take shape and take hold. So this whole process leads to this change in the weather pattern. But before we get there, we're going to have to deal with this Pacific air mass coming in. With that, it's also going to lead to drier conditions. And you might say to yourself, Stephen, it's coming off the Pacific. The Pacific is an ocean. Yes, but it's also going to be going through the Rockies, the plains, the Great Lakes. And until it gets to here, by the time it gets to here, it's relatively a dry air mass that gets to our neck of the woods. So all these changes are taking shape right now. All part of the changes that we're seeing here in our sea surface temperatures. And by the way, a lot of people have been noticing this as well. Yeah, it's important. This signature here usually suggests you're going to see your storm tracks with tropical systems heading more towards the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico and possibly up the coast because of this evolution here where you start to support a cold, dense, high pressure system that starts to take shape and send systems in this direction. So yeah, another warning sign to just that's going to stand out here with a very warm Atlantic. So that is what's going on with our evolution of the pattern. Let's step back here and take a look at what's going on right now and what we can expect through this weekend and into next week. So it's pretty clear we have an easterly wind here, high pressure to the north of us. Easterly wind driving in that maritime air mass. Temperatures range from the lower to mid 50s along the coast. As you move further inland, you see temperatures ranging from the mid 50s to lower 60s. So what is this really showing? It's showing the maritime air mass driving in colder conditions, cooler conditions along the coast, warmer conditions as you move inland. That's going to be the theme all the way through this weekend. On our WeatherTap surface map and radar, it's pretty dry, but clouds are on the increase. There's our low pressure system helping that easterly wind. Our high pressure system's up in the Canadian Maritimes, driving that easterly wind. This rainfall here is going to be holding off until we get to Sunday. Yeah, the second half of this weekend's not looking so great. But before we get to that, let's take a look at our visible satellite picture. This is really cool to watch. Here you see at this lower levels of the atmosphere, this maritime air mass building in. There's the low clouds driving in. Meanwhile, in the mid and upper levels, winds are coming in from the west and southwest. So you see these higher clouds moving in from the Ohio River Valley. So you're getting in this clash of two different cloud patterns moving in two different directions. When you take a look at the temperatures here, you can see how this is taking shape with warm air transport trying to win the fight here at 850 millibars, rapidly losing it at 925 millibars, and even at the surface. You can see that gradient that really shows up. Right here is your maritime air mass, and then as you move further in, you get more of a Pacific tropical type mix of an air mass back here with temperatures in the 70s. What does that look like in a vertical presentation? Well, this is from Tropical Tidbits, and take a look at this. Take a look at this evolution that we're seeing here. At the surface, you see how this is kinks here? Okay, here's your temperature, and this is your relative humidity. You see this right here? This tells us the atmosphere is saturated at roughly about 950 millibars. So this is where your low clouds. This right here is this here. Meanwhile, your higher clouds is represented here. You have a lot of dry air here at around 850 to 925 millibars. So what this tells us is here comes our maritime air mass undercutting, creating a stable environment, cooler environment. You're much warmer at the mid levels. If you didn't have this easterly wind, you'd easily be in the mid 70s. But because of this warmer pocket here and the cooler air coming in, you end up with this cloud deck setting up, overcast clouds, but you don't see much rainfall because of this dry pocket here preventing any rainfall from developing. It's just a lot of low clouds and not much in the way of lifting. You certainly have a very impressive vertical gradient, a temperature gradient, but it's what we call stable or inverted because your cooler conditions are at the lower portions of the atmosphere, and at the mid and upper levels, you have warmer conditions. In fact, it is warmer all the way up to 700 millibars than at the surface. Pretty impressive stuff, right? So that is what we're seeing here when we take a look and we see this. So when we take a look at the infrared satellite picture, not much in the way of lifting here. We know that because there isn't much in the way of cold cloud tops here. Certainly a lot of impressive lifting down here, all taking shape. Let's refresh this again, just to make sure we got the latest data. And again, very impressive thunderstorms down here. Get used to hearing that all spring and summer with very active conditions here in the plains and the Mississippi River Valley. So through this weekend over the next 90 hours, our ridge axis protects us from any type of precipitation through tomorrow. On Sunday, the ridge axis pushes off the coast. A weak shortwave in the polar jet stream approaches the region. Now, the heart of this shortwave is in Canada, but it is strong enough to support enough lifting, but not strong enough to drive a cold front through very quickly. So this cold front lingers all the way on through Monday with weak lifting overall. And so that sets up this thermal gradient for Sunday and Monday with plenty of moisture as well. So that's going to lead to some damp conditions moving through Sunday into Monday. And then for the rest of next week, a lot of mixed sun and clouds and isolated showers, much like this past week, with not a lot of rainfall, but a few locations could see a pesky shower or two. And then towards the end of the forecast pattern, towards the end of the forecast period, should I say, we start to see this trough shift to the east as our pattern evolution change continues to unfold and leads to a deep trough. Now, the one thing I'm a little skeptical on is once we get out to next weekend, this feature right here, let's zoom in here. You see this little signal here that enhances precipitation here. You see this lifting? This looks like a convective feedback error based on what I'm looking at here on all the other guidance and looking at the factors. But I like to use this to show that, hey, look, even the European that does an amazing job and does very well, even the European AI guidance, it's not foolproof. And part of being a meteorologist is saying, hey, look, this looks a little funky. We're going to reduce this or adjust it. And this is part of our job, rather than just say, hey, there's a model, copy paste, there we go. This is a signal here that you always have to keep an eye on and watch out for, because what that does is produce unrealistic lifting, despite the primary low pressure system and all of your thermal gradients all up here. It tries to produce this feature here. And the reason why that's an issue is because when you take a look at 850 millibars, you get this funky upper level low here that enhances precipitation more than what is reality. So we'll keep an eye on it and see how it plays out. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a triple point secondary low along the coast next weekend. I just don't buy it being as intense. Seems a bit overdone. So with that, let's dive into our forecast for today. Mix of sun and clouds over the interior, overcast cloud cover along the coast. Temperatures will range from the upper 50s to lower 60s on the immediate coast, mid to upper 60s in the Delaware River Valley, upper 60s to lower 70s as you move into eastern Pennsylvania. For tonight into tomorrow, cloudy skies can be expected with low temperatures in the mid to upper 40s. For tomorrow afternoon, again, cloudy skies, especially along the coast, mix of sun and clouds over the interior. Look for temperatures to range from the lower to mid 60s along the immediate coast, mid to upper 60s away from the coast. On Saturday, wait a minute. I do apologize. There was an error here. Let me restart this then. So, where do we begin? Back here to Friday. Again, cloudy skies along the coast, mix of sun and clouds over the interior. Hey, it happens sometimes. We'll just roll with it. Look again for high temperatures in the upper 50s to lower 60s along the coast, mid to upper 60s in the Delaware River Valley, upper 60s to lower 70s over eastern Pennsylvania. For tonight and tomorrow, again, cloudy skies. Look for low temperatures in the mid to upper 40s. Now, tomorrow, clouds will continue to increase over the interior. Overcast cloud cover continues along the coast with high temperatures ranging from the lower to mid 60s along the coast, mid to upper 60s away from the coast. Now, for tomorrow night into Sunday, showers will develop, especially towards morning. Widespread showers on Sunday for much of the day. Not looking for heavy downpours throughout the region, but certainly damp conditions with areas of drizzle and passing showers. Temperatures will range from the mid to upper 50s along the coast, mid to upper 50s over the interior, and lower to mid 60s in the Delaware River Valley. Showers continue on through Monday as that frontal boundary stalls over the region with low temperatures ranging from the mid to upper 50s in your suburbs and over the interior, upper 50s to lower 60s in your urban areas. High temperatures will range from the lower to mid 70s over the interior, lower to mid 70s along the coast, and upper 70s to lower 80s in the Delaware River Valley. On Tuesday, we get a break with a mix of sun and clouds, low temperatures ranging from the lower to mid 50s over the interior, mid to upper 50s along the coast, high temperatures in the mid to upper 70s over the interior and along the coast, upper 70s to lower 80s in the Delaware River Valley. On Wednesday, another area low pressure will approach with periods of showers towards the afternoon and evening hours. Look for low temperatures in the lower to mid 50s over the interior and in your suburbs, upper 50s to lower 60s in your urban areas. High temperatures will range from the lower to mid 60s over the coast around Long Island, upper 60s to lower 70s for the rest of the coast, mid to upper 70s in the Delaware River Valley, lower to mid 70s over the interior. On Thursday, mix of sun and clouds with a few isolated showers. Look for low temperatures in the upper 50s to lower 60s over the interior and suburbs, lower to mid 60s in your urban areas. High temperatures ranging from the mid to upper 60s along the coast, upper 60s to lower 70s away from the coast. And on Friday, more showers can be expected as an area of low pressure passes through the region. Again, most of this rainfall right now looks to be in the overnight hours, but we'll have lingering pesky showers continuing with Low temperatures ranging from the lower to mid 50s over the interior and suburbs, mid to upper 50s over the urban areas, and high temperatures ranging from the lower to mid 70s over the interior and along the coast, upper 70s to lower 80s in the Delaware River Valley. And as you can see beyond that point, we remain very active. This is what I was talking about with that low pressure system. Looks a bit overdone here. I like the idea of a weak secondary low, but I don't think, considering the rest of this pattern, that you're going to see this set up exactly. But it certainly looks like unsettled conditions on through next weekend as well. So if you have outdoor plans, looks like you better get them done today and tomorrow. That is your premium public video forecast discussion for this week. Have a wonderful weekend, and as always, stay safe out there.